I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, and I'm going to invite you to respond. I've heard a very powerful call from a number of speakers this morning, including particularly our host, Governor of Garissa, to move from a humanitarian approach to a long-term resilience approach. In 2 minutes, tell me what that would mean to do that in Mandera, please.
Thank you very much, Brother Steve. And I really appreciate UNICEF and other development partners for organizing this meeting. And I do hope that at the end of today, we'll come up with a very comprehensive response and way forward. And I want to agree with the previous speakers, especially my brother Nadif and Mahmoud of Marsabit, that when we are talking of resilience, we are talking about ability to withstand or to recover from shocks. What that means is that although we appreciate the life-saving programs that has been undertaken by county government, national government, and development partners, it is important that we now focus on the long-term plan. And for those of us from northern Kenya, it is true we know what we really require. And it's not about every time coming together and discussing those issues, although sometimes discussion is good. Our major challenge is water. And I really agree with Governor Marsabit. Said number one is water, number two water, number three is water. Because if we solve the problem of water, we will save our livestock, which we always lose in large numbers every cycle and drought. Livestock is the main livelihood of this community. That's what I mean. It's not only moving to agriculture, but by creating feedlots so that when we have droughts, then we don't lose our animals. It was very unfortunate that we lost over billions of shillings worth animals in the last dry spell. When we address the issue of water, we'll have solved the issue of health. Remember, health is our biggest challenge. The numbers which was projected here actually show it all. And we have solved the problem of health. If we solve the problem of water, then we have improved on our literacy level. Because most of our schools drop out of school because when the animals were moved from one area to another in search of pasture and water, and then they follow their parents. That's why we always talk about the high level of dropouts in this area. And we will solve the problem of water. We'll have addressed the issue of insecurity. Remember, we have talked about insecurity in this area, whether it is cross-border conflicts like in our case, those counties along the border, or the internal conflicts. And you can't underscore the importance of that. As a county, we are not only asking for help. We want us to partner with our development partners and the national government to move from relief interventions to capital development. It is not that we always want to be assisted. As it was mentioned in the morning, as counties, we are really doing a lot. If we show you the numbers, and we have done intervention, we have done in health, education, water, for the last 10 years, there's a huge difference between the numbers we have at the onset of the devolution, 2013, to today. What that means is that devolution has really worked for these counties. And the other one I wanted to mention is about some of us, the counties along the border, we don't only serve the people within our counties. We also extend our help to the people across. It was mentioned Garissa hosts thousands of numbers of refugees. What does that mean on the education budget, on health, on water? A good example in Mandera, we are bordering Ethiopia and Somalia. The number of patients that attend Mandera Referral Hospital from Somalia and Ethiopia are more than 100,000 per year. We have the numbers. So it's like whatever little we have is we are sharing with our brothers and sisters across the border, because we cannot deny them education, we cannot deny them water, we cannot deny them health. It's a basic human right. So by getting water, then we'll have gone to the alternative livelihood we have been talking about. 90% of our population rely on livestock, which is unsustainable as we speak today. Because the families that lost their livestock in the last drought are now destitute. They are just increasing the number when it comes to the poverty level. So how do we save that is very important. So ours is not only asking for help, what we're asking for is partnership to do a joint program between the three partners, county government, national government, and development partners. I do agree that the small intervention we are getting, or we are doing it in terms of livelihood, is important, but that is not the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. And thank you for keeping it very concise. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go to my brother, the Governor of Wajir, and ask him to pick up the thread. Governor of Mandera has called for a triangular partnership, really, between county, national, and international partners around building long-term resilience. Can I ask you, from the perspective of your county, what you think a partnership of that kind might look like? What would be the division of labour between those three different sets of actors?
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to everybody. Steve, I think we'll all be saying the same things. And I was hoping that this was not going to be a talking shop like the ones you've had in the past. And I was actually hoping that we'll be told, not to be asked, what is going to be done differently, honestly. Because these things have been said by everybody, we know what they are. I'll try not to use flowery language. The last guy who presented said a lot of things, but they were all very flowery and the typical NGO language. I think the solution is this. First of all, can this region, ASALs or arid, because now ASAL is also very contentious, everybody wants to be ASAL. Maybe we'll start calling ourselves hyper-arid so that we're different. Can we be embraced as being integral to Kenya? That's the point number one. We're still not embraced. We are within the boundaries of Kenya, but we have not been embraced. And now the embracing we're asking for is an economic one. I know the things I'm saying here are not politically correct. And why do I say that? Governors here are pleading for, I think the governor of Garissa is even shy to say dam. He's saying, please, let's have a water reservoir of 2 billion shillings. He doesn't want to be seen to be asking for a dam. And yet we are saying ASALs are 80% of the landmass of Kenya. So we can't have one dam in 80% of Kenya. What resilience are we talking about? Frankly, you know, these are the issues really to be dealt with. And now when we speak, we are told, oh, but you know, all the money has been devolved and the governors are misusing money. Those are diversionary tactics. The money that I have in my county, between establishment cost, what I call establishment cost is salaries and the ability to fuel vehicles and buy some medicine for the dispensaries, and what I get and raise is less than 1.5 billion shillings. It can't do much, really. It can't do much for 600 settlements. So you do a dispensary here, you do a water well here, and those have been done. The numbers speak for themselves. We've done more water wells. In Wajir, we had 82 water wells before devolution, even with the breakages and the lifespan issues, now we have over 350 in 10 years. So improvements have been made with the devolved money. But the legacy issues that we're suffering from are not as a result of devolution. They are as a result of sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which deemed us not productive. It said, don't invest in these areas because there's nothing coming out of it. That mindset's still there. There isn't still a lot of investment by national government in these areas. So for me, that's the starting point, really. Can we be embraced as being relevant economically? I think it will come as a matter of time. Mm-hmm. But can we, it will come not because we're liked to be embraced, but out of reality. If we own 80% of the land mass, there'll be no land left to do any agriculture. You will have to come to us and do agriculture in our land to feed Kenya. Yeah. Where there is land, there is no water. That's what has been said here. Everybody here has said that there is no water. And where there is water, very soon there will be no land to do anything. Because it's so smallholder, why are we having issues with sugar in this country? Because the sugar belt has been so subdivided that there is no land to do sugar farming anymore. But Tana River County can give us all the sugar that we need in Kenya. So I think those are the issues that we have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Coordination is another issue. Coordination. And to show that, we're not being taken seriously, let's even ask Minister here what budget she gets. What budget does the Ministry of ASAL really get? Ministry of Interior is given money for security roads. Why can't she be given money for ASAL roads? How much money does she get for water? So we have created an ASAL ministry, but without any funding. She is not going to be any different from Elmi in 2007? 2007. In fact, the only thing that Elmi did for us is that sessional paper number 8 of 2012. Because he was also not funded. I think those are the issues that we have to deal with. And because of the percentage we are of the landmass of Kenya, if we really don't open up ourselves and invest in infrastructure and water and education and health, then how do we end this? We suffer from what I call bondage by tokenism and patronage. We are bonded now by tokenism and patronage. We have over 100 members of parliament from their cells. And if they speak with one voice today, they can actually decide everything in Kenya. Yeah, with 100 MPs, you can actually stall everything in Kenya. But we can't do that because of tokenism and patronage. Everybody anaitwa kando anaambia kutakupatia project kidogo in your constituency. Yeah. And the same even as with governors. I think this is the challenge we have. We must speak with one voice and demand for our place and our share. Na tuache fitina ndogo ndogo amongst us. I think that's resource mapping. I was having a conversation with Waziri in the plane. And the things that she told me, actually, in fact, as I was sitting here, I was still thinking about them. That, Waziri, I have to divulge this. That they call what? Gallstones in cows fetch more money than the cow in China. But how many cows have died? And who has actually ever thought of removing the gallstones? So proper resource mapping. Proper resource mapping. And probably then we need to start bringing in experts and researchers to look at, we could earn more from these resources. The other curse is spatial development. In fact, if you ask me today, what is the intervention number one that we need for resilience in our counties? It's not everything you've said here. It is to stop new settlements, to stop new villages. Because we're creating villages at a faster pace than we can cope. Spoiling our rangeland, causing unnecessary conflict. Why water tracking won't stop is because for every borehole that you drill as a governor, within your term, 2 new settlements have started. Yeah. If we can just have a policy and be able to enforce. As governors, we have failed to enforce. I can't enforce. I don't have the enforcement ability to stop new settlements in my county. It's political. But resilience number one measure would have been to stop new settlements so that we can build schools and dispensaries to the existing ones and give them water sources. I think I'll stop it at that. Water governance and all these other issues are there for us. Our water is mostly non-revenue water. We are having challenges with that. But even before we do all those things, can we stop the new settlements? Thank you.
Thank you, Maheshimiwa. Yes, indeed. A very powerful appeal for national resources to flow to the 80% of the territory of Kenya. But also some very interesting points. This is new to me about the new settlements, but it makes eminent sense. I want to go to your brother, the governor of Marsabit now, and ask a question about the private sector, if I may. Because we know that even with the best will in the world, national resources are limited. Right? We know that if a dam is going to cost 2 billion shillings, we know that the entire national budget of Kenya is only 4.5 trillion shillings. So you could do, 2,000 dams, but you wouldn't have any money for anything else. Right? So we know that the development resources are going to have to come also from the private sector. I'm just wondering, Maheshimiwa, whether from your perspective as governor in Marsabit, do you see a way that the private sector, Kenyan private sector or the international private sector can play a role here? Is there a way for them to make money while doing good? We need to, yeah, there we go.
Thank you very much. I think very important question. But before I come to that, just to take up from where Governor Wajir left about investment in the ASALs by national government and others. One very important thing that we need to note, there is a scramble for arable land in conducive environment for agriculture. Already there is not enough land. But you know, we are talking of 80%, which has got fertile soils, very fertile soils. If only water is provided, this part of the country is able to feed the whole nation. We don't have to think about importing any agricultural produce, only if we have sufficient water for agriculture. I just wanted to make that point clear. About private partnership, very important, and that is the way to go. Of course, it is foolhardy to expect that national government alone can be able to do everything. Although we are saying if there was clear departure from what has been done before, thinking very seriously about the area, the resources that we have had will have been able to be put to better use, and therefore our status will have been very different. The program by His Excellency the President, whereby he's talking of dams all over, and I have seen the list in northern Kenya. If only that is implemented, right, that will do great service to this region. But it's not possible to do alone. World over, private companies invest, you know, and they work hand in hand with national government, regional governments like ourselves. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to partner. For example, in Marsabit, we are endowed with wind. The highest wind speed in Africa is in Marsabit. And already there is a farm, Turkana Wind Power,
Yes.
is connecting national grid with 340 megawatts, right? Big percentage of our national requirement. But unfortunately, you see what happens. Where it is coming from, Loyangalani town is in darkness, right? You know, that grid still needs to be regulated. Marsabit is on generator, okay? So there is a big opportunity for us to partner with the private investors. There is need for us to do resource mapping in the whole of the ASALs. A lot of minerals, whether Wajir, Garissa, ASAL, wherever, Tana River. In Marsabit, recently there's gold rush, a place called the Bell. People just go there with small gadgets here and there and collect nuggets. And of course, if there's deliberate, you know, investment by a private sector there, it's an opportunity for us to partner. And as governors, we are open to this. We'll partner with all the private sectors to ensure that the economic opportunity in our counties is exploited to the benefit of our people. And of course, not in exclusion to the national government. We'll work hand in hand with the national government to ensure that the environment is conducive for investors to come and partner with us.
Thank you so much, Maheshimiwa, and you were very generously brief because we feel the prayers, the hour for prayer coming towards us quite rapidly. I want to go to our host, the Governor of Garissa, and ask you a related question. Sometimes when I talk to development partners, they say, look, not only are we ready to help, but we're ready to encourage our private sector actors to help. But what we need is to have projects that are well prepared, that are really convincing. Where do you see the constraints for producing those kinds of projects that are convincing, and how can we help with that?
Thank you, Steve. Steve, before I dwell into that question, let me, you know, I was really keen on the data and the numbers that were on the screen from our last presenter. Very, indeed, very well presented. But every bit of his information, which of course was a necessary information, was more of dealing, like they say, with the symptoms
Than the cure. Yeah.
rather than the real problem. I mean, he rightly says, you know, schools are not doing well. The real problem here, as was said, and we will keep saying this, and I hope we will be forgiven for being, we'll be forgiven. You know, a lot of the issues, the poverty, the food insecurity, the issues that he discussed here are all important. They are all, you know, dealing with the symptoms. I think if we have water, we will have agriculture and food security. If we have water, we will retain our schools, our children in our schools. And if we have water, our healthcare systems and sanitation will be better and improved. So basically, I want really to impress on this very, very important forum the need for us today to make a huge and important recommendation as far as the issues of water is concerned. And the solutions are there, as we already discussed. On the issue of the investment opportunities, I think I without being so brutal as my colleague Ahmed did, we need to be appreciated by our friends, including the private sectors, that we also have huge resources. You know, the negative perceptions, I think the problem we are suffering from, whether historical or otherwise, are notions that, you know, once upon a time, they used to say, whether jokingly or whatever, that NEP, Northeastern Province, stands for nothing except problems. Nothing except
problems.
that the narrative or notion seems to have stuck somewhere. We want to tell the world and our private sector friends that the opportunities available here in this region could be much more greater than in many other parts of the country. Whether it's in food and in arable land, whether it's in minerals, they have not been exploited. Why can't the Kenya government, for that matter, the national government, take, should I say, an affirmative view on that and basically push now investors to the region in a big way? Basically make a policy that we want now investors to come to northern Kenya and to explore all the available opportunities. I was saying once, I mean, in some times back, currently in my county here, the farmers are now growing, what do you call this oil? Sunflower oil. And a simsim. We are now able to grow exotic products like, sunflower, hopefully, or in the hope of, having our own, plans to process that into oil. Now, Steve, that is, when I do that in Garissa, that is news. But when that's done in let's say, in Nyeri or in Kiambu, it's not news.
Not news.
But I'm doing it. Why can't I have investors to come here and push me to do that more? So what we need is, I think, a mindset change and a deliberate attempt. I'm repeating myself, a deliberate attempt by the government, national government that is, to push investors to our region to see how much we have, to explore our opportunities. Again, as an example, in Garissa here, we have just discovered lately that we have the best gypsum mining in Garissa here. We have the best gypsum quality in this county here. And and if only we can get investors to come forward, and we do it together rightfully, and with right now, in fact, as I speak, we have put a stop on that because we have seen a lot of a lot of things that were being done wrongly, including serious environmental degradation. So we have put a halt on that now. But if we have investors who can come forward and we get the right national government support with such initiatives, then I think we can go very far as private partnership is concerned. Asante.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. I'm tempted to say that we need to rebrand, and instead of NEP being nothing except problems, it has to be nothing except potential, because there is massive potential here. So it is about getting the investors to see that potential, and that's, of course, at the global level and the continental level what the climate summit was all about. But we need the version of that here at the county level. I'm going to go to my brother, the Deputy Governor of Tana River, and ask you then, Mheshimiwa, we've heard it loud and clear. Resilience means water. You're a county that has a river in your name. So I imagine Tana River has some good lessons to teach us about what works at the county level to solve the water problem. What can you tell us from Tana River about making water work?
Okay, thank you very much. I think following the proceedings from this morning to now, what has come to my mind is from theory to practical approach in terms of development or resilience, as we say. In every county, we have CIDPs. That means all projects are catered for there, and what remains is only the funding of those projects or the resilience. Now, for example, in Tana River, you asked me about the use of water. We have some plans in our we have some projects in our development plans, our CDIP. And let me talk of cluster. This cluster is shifting from the river to the upper lands, especially because of the floods. That's one of the plans we have as a county. And there are some challenges. Throughout of the whole of this week, we had been receiving partners, and we have been discussing about irrigation. 3 times we met them, or we sat with them, and we have been discussing about irrigation in Tana River. We have 4 giant schemes in Tana River, that is Bura Irrigation Scheme, Hola Irrigation Scheme, Gamba Irrigation Scheme, and then Kulalo Irrigation Scheme. Now, these schemes are government initiated, or let's say National Irrigation Board. But we have farmers or small irrigation, minor schemes or small scale farmers along the River Tana. Even here, Garissa, if you move just some meters from here, you find that farmers are very many using small engines sets, I mean. So, when you look at these small irrigation farmers, you find that they are lacking a lot of things. For example, using engine is costly. The fuel has risen. The payment, the cost of fuel has really risen. And therefore, for a farmer to be very effective in production, it becomes very difficult. So we are going for solarization. What we are now embarking is on solarization. So in solarization, our aim is, if the government is catering for the irrigation schemes, using maybe, let's say, the canals, the main bigger canals, for the solarization, we can engage the partners, development partners. For example, you come to Tana River. You as partners come to Tana River, and then we sit together. Now these are the farmers. These are the irrigation farmers who are farming in this giant or big irrigation farms, and then we have the small scale farmers. What should we do? We can ask the partners to go for solarization. You go for solarization, we say, okay, there are such schemes, you just go for solarization. So you find that in that collaboration, after some times, you come out with something tangible. So that is 1. 2, now in moving from the river to the higher land, we are trying to initiate, or we have to initiate some projects, schools, health centers. So in this partnership, let's say if we go for a school, and especially ECD, because that one is devolved, is the other schools, primary, secondary, these are national government projects, but ECDs are devolved. So we sit down, we discuss together as partners, and then if we go for teachers as a county, you go for the construction. Maybe in one of those clusters, you go for the construction of the facility. Or you start the facility, we go for the teachers. That will have been solved amicably. But when discussing, writing a lot of things, paying a lot of, incurring a lot of expenses, for example, in this room, a lot of money has been spent, and it will be spent, because coming, going, and the whole day staying here, this is a lot of money. So this money can be used for such projects. Instead of talking a lot, writing a lot, that is where we are supposed to go according to my observation. That is practical approach. So with the river water, In fact, we have embarked on agriculture right now as a county, and we are really sensitizing our people in Tana River to go back, even those pastoralists. You know, there's agricultural life and the pastoralists. And the pastoralists are, I appreciate the pastoralists are also moving now to farming, crop farming. Like Garissa now. We are neighboring. Tana River is just here, and this one is Garissa. The Garissa people were pastoralists formerly. They didn't know how to go for agriculture. But now, good percentage of them are farmers. And so these are some of the ways we are supposed to move, or it's the way we are going to, we have to move, rather than talking a lot, writing a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my approach. Oh, that's what. Yeah.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. So with the small time that remains, I think about 3 minutes each, I'm going to come to the Deputy Governors of Isiolo and Lamu, each in turn. We've got massive consensus here. Water, water, water. 1, 2, and 3. How do we make that work for your counties? Let's go to Isiolo first, and then to Lamu.
Thank you, Dr. Steve, for this opportunity. First of all, greetings from my governor, Abdi Ibrahim Guyo, who is actually handling the only issue that's affecting most of our ASAL countries, that is insecurity. Actually, is with the CS Kindiki, putting up police posts. And our insecurity is unique, is mainly because of the cosmopolitan nature of our county, where there is competition for pasture and water. So I believe he is present with us. Now, this is my first time in Garissa, and by extension to the NEP. My version of NEP is that I'm actually in the new ecosystem of productivity. So I think NEP now has to be given a new meaning. So maybe back to the question that you've asked about water, water, water. Actually, as our senior governor from Mandera said, water is the solution for everything. It will actually solve all the problems within Kenya. It's only that it requires unity amongst the leadership of the ASAL counties. So unity is what my senior from Wajir said. If the MPs united, we could have immediate solutions. So it calls for unity, both from our county leaders who are in the national government and also in the local governments. The second one is commitment, because once we have initiatives within our forums, it's good that whatever agreements are done, all the leadership has to commit to it, be it in provision of resources, be it even provision of attendance. So it's good that we all commit to that. But there is need to understand our background. Northeastern or ASAL counties are mainly pastoralists. Before we engage maybe in agriculture, is it possible to improve on what we have been actually practicing, like livestock farming? Is it possible to modernize it so that we can actually change the mindset where instead of having a herd of 100, you can still have a herd of 5 dairy cows, where we can have that small scale within that borehole and produce milk. This will release the children from herding and going to school, and I know that we require education in this sector. So it will release a lot of pressure on us. So it's just a matter of prioritization of what actually will work for us. So, but something else, maybe I know we are under pressure of time. We are forgetting about investment in the ASAL regions. Recently, in the Revolution Conference in Eldoret, the American ambassador talked a lot about the investments that are actually streaming towards Kenya. Is it possible for the ASAL counties to take advantage of this and attract investors such that we can have a stimulus of actually employing so many people and attract others so that we can have a market for our products? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And let's go straight to Lamu.
Thank you, Moderator. First and foremost, I want to commend all the Excellencies, the governors present here, for their wonderful remarks they gave during their presentations. And in particular, the issue raised by His Excellency Governor Nabif Jama of putting a dam, which is always translated as a very expensive thing, really should be looked into seriously. Lamu is more unique in as much as we are part of the ASAL. We have the mainland where we have both pastoralists and agriculturists. We have the islands where mainly is on the blue economy, the fishermen. The water scarcity during drought can be seen across the whole county. And in particular, since we don't have a big budget, Lamu County has the smallest budget among the 47 counties. We are therefore restrained by mainly making maybe water ponds for the pastoralists. And as you are aware, water ponds are very seasonal. When the rains are there, they look good. When there's drought, the water ponds dry. Last drought, we had a serious issue whereby it was not only the conflict between the pastoralists and agriculturists, but also we have a huge wildlife numbers within Lamu. It's only that because of insecurity, it has not been possible to develop those areas as touristic areas. But on the islands, the water scarcity is even severe. All the boreholes, all the wells dug there, the water is saline, which is undrinkable, and you can't use it for any other purpose other than maybe for just washing small things. We have put up 6 desalination plants within those islands. However, the challenge is we are all using electricity and generators, and the cost of fuel and that electricity is quite huge. Transporting fuel to those islands, we are not talking of we have roads throughout. We have to bring that fuel to Mokoi Jetty, put it in the boat, offload it, you pay the laborers, put in the boat, pay other expenses, take it to the islands, you offload it again and take it to their destinations. At the same time, the cost of electricity, which on the islands rely not only on the national grid but on a generator, which keeps on frequently breaking down, is another challenge. So I believe what the Excellencies raised here, this round table should not be a round table of just talking and coming up with resolutions. It should be an action plan. We should see fruitful results. We should know where we are going from here. If at all you are talking of investments, Lamu also has a serious challenge there. We do not even have one factory. It is only now that we are now bringing investors to put up a cotton ginnery, because we produce 60% of the cotton in Kenya. And also putting up a cashew nut factory, because we produce 40% of all the cashew nuts in Kenya. So we are trying. But this issue of water, I agree, and it is compounded in Lamu County, especially on the islands, the Chipalago, whereby it has generated also other health issues. That's why our mortality rate, infant mortality rate, and neonatal mortality rate is also quite high. Because we are talking of logistics. We are stretched as far as Ishakani, the border to Somalia, and Kiunga. Bringing patients from Kiunga, because it's a dispensary, all the way to Lamu, which is a 2 hours boat ride, is another challenge. By the time that patient maybe has a serious issue, may not even be able to reach Lamu, the main hospital, King Fahd, for any medical attention. So it's a serious issue. if we can solve this problem of water, not only in Lamu but in all the other counties, because similarities are the same, I think we'll move a step forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Excellencies and friends, I mean, often these panels are quite difficult to summarize. This panel is very easy to summarize indeed. Water. That's my summary. But actually, Waziri, as you rejoin us, perhaps 4 points that I take away. 2 are for the resilience framework. 2 are points of principle, and 2 are points of substance. The point of principle, number 1, that the resilience framework really needs explicitly to recognize the ASAL counties as integral to Kenya's present and Kenya's future. And the second is, as one of their excellencies said, to avoid the blah, blah, blah. Enough of the flowery language. We need to be very practical in the resilience framework. And then the 2 points of substance. So the first one is, it's water. In my country, you buy lots of pre-prepared foods where all of the ingredients are in the box, and the instructions, it just says, just add water. That should be our slogan. Just add water. Everything else flows from there. Economic growth, security, education, the fight for gender equality, it all comes from water. That's what we've heard loud and clear. So that has to be the central plank. And then finally, investment. And that means private sector investment, which means consciously taking the steps through the resilience framework to bring private sector investors to see the potential. Nothing except potential. There is enormous potential, whether it's in gypsum, whether it's in cashew nuts and cotton, whether it's in many of the other commodities that we've heard about, whether it's indeed, as the Deputy Governor said, in concentrating on building a 21st century livestock industry before one even thinks about arable agriculture. So there's so much potential. We have to bring the private sector actors to see that potential so that they can invest in it, and that needs to be a conscious part of the resilience framework. So, Your Excellencies, thank you so very much. You made my job very easy. Really appreciate it. Thank you also for bearing with the pressure on time. Just before we go to prayers, I'm going to give it back to our moderator for a housekeeping announcement.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator. A photo session. Waziri will join them briefly. Then.